Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to people joining in from different locations, different time zones. Thank you so much for attending this session. And this session is about advanced automated visual testing. In case you're in the wrong session, feel free to leave. There are other sessions happening in parallel. And if you're here to attend this session, thank you so much once again. So without wasting any time further, I would like to start. Yeah, so today's session is going to be about advanced automated visual testing. And we'll see what the concept really is, the basic concept. Then we'll talk about the challenges, the potentials, and how we've implemented this in our pipeline at Accelerant. What challenges did we face there? And how we've achieved success. I'll tell you about some good practices. So let's begin. But before we begin, this is a small information about me. My name is Shweta Sharma, and I'm located in India, Pune, western part of India, and it's really approximately, or it's precisely 8:46 p.m. here. And I work as the Director of Quality Assurance Services at Accelerant. I've been associated with Accelerant for 6 years now. On 1st of August, I'll complete 6 years with this amazing organization. And you can stay in touch with me over email, my social media details. And my hobbies include classical dancing, globetrotting, and watching stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is like such an amazing stress buster for me. So humor is a very important part of my life. That's why I stress on that. And this is a very, just a brief about what we do, what Accelerant does. We are a fully distributed organization working across 6 time zones. And we have been in the industry for over 10 years now. And we have 110 plus enthusiastic professionals, which is a mix of developers, front-end developers, back-end developers, the QA team, our life coach, then our marketing team. Yeah, we have an amazing team. And we have had successful 150 plus partner engagements till now. And Accelerant is a strong believer in contributing to open source. And we have also created various means to encourage our employees to contribute to open source in form of code, in form of sharing our knowledge, say, across on GitHub, post GitHub repositories, write blogs, and even like give talks like these and share our knowledge. So I had already briefed about the agenda, but this is, you can just go through it, you can just glance through it. This is what we are going to be talking about primarily throughout the session. If there's anything which comes like on the fly, I'll just take that as well. Okay. What is automated visual testing? Right. We all have heard of visual testing, right? We know we test the user interface, and it's such an important part of our web applications. Visual testing is not new to us, right? We check the user interface on various viewports. We check it across various browsers. We check it across multiple devices, be it iOS device or be it an Android device, right? We check across multiple viewports, right? We check the user interface. We validate it manually. So when you talk about automated visual testing, it's simple, right? We automate the verification of those of the user interface. Both visual testing and automated visual testing are no more new concepts in our industry. I remember I heard about automated visual testing first almost 5 years ago. So I don't really consider the concept new anymore. And the industry or the tool industry just in automated visual testing has evolved so much in 5 years. So what do we validate? We validate the content, we validate the page layout, and we validate it across browsers and devices. Why do we need it, right? So it's so important to understand the need first. Otherwise, it's just like we would be probably investing our efforts and time in something that we don't even need. So let's identify the need here first. Human factor. Whenever humans are involved in mundane tasks, right? So they are prone to error, right? Any task which is repetitive. I know that none of my team members in the QA team, they are happy to just go over and over and checking the same UI piece on various viewports, various browsers, and various devices. They immediately come up with something which is so natural, is that first of all, it's a mundane task. It's prone to error. They start missing out on issues. And apart from that, there's another human factor, which is there are many clients, who come up with requirements like they want their website to be of certain style, right? And human eye will not perceive, say, two hex codes of orange color which are similar, right? The hex codes are different, but the color is something that we perceive as it would be same for us, right? So there are two aspects to human factor. One is that it's prone to error, and we have some limitations. Next is the larger release cycles. That's such a big problem today. We want to shorten the feedback loop. And really, the primary objective of test automation is to shorten that feedback loop. There is no bigger objective than that. Everything else is secondary. And in order to solve the problem of larger release cycles, test automation plays a key role in reducing that and helping us release faster. Next is the larger device OS matrix. Again, this is so closely tied to the larger release cycle. There has rarely been a scenario where we haven't had a requirement that the client wants, the site to look perfect on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, IE 11, and then just to add it, the site has to be responsive, whether the client wants it or not. It's just that, mobile usage is so much today that if we do not make the site to be responsive, we are just going to be out of business anytime. And the last point is so important. Humans really should be investing their time in testing the usability of the application and checking the functionality of the application and so many other things which a human can test, and leave all the repetitive tasks to tools. And along with that, I'll add one more need, which is automated functional tests. They're not really able to catch UI bugs, right? Unless you write a lot of code which actually validates the CSS. So it's really up to you to decide whether you want to go ahead and write all that code to validate the CSS, or do you just want a visual tool who will do, that will do it for you. So let's quickly take a look at how does it work, how the basic algorithm works. So when the test runner initiates the test, what happens on the first run is it would create a set of baseline shots, which we call it as reference images, right? And on the subsequent runs, what it's going to do is it's going to capture screenshots again at runtime, and it's going to capture this with the baseline shots, and it's going to report differences, if any. If there are differences, if it's unintended, then it's a bug. If it's intended, then probably what you have to do is you have to go ahead and update the baseline so that next time the test runner runs, it's going to match with the updated reference shot. So this is the site that we are going to use for demo today. I'm not going to be really demoing anything because in the rehearsals, we figured out that actual demo and video would not work out. So what I've done is I've converted the entire demo into a flow of screenshots, and I'll help you explain the workflow in form of screenshots. So I have used this demo site from Acromedia. And so this is a category listing page. and we'll just see how the basic algorithm works for this page. So I've used Backstop.js here. So on the left, if you see, I have defined all the viewports that I want to use in this particular test. And on the right, you would see the test actually. So Backstop.js is primarily a config-based tool. You don't really have to write any code as such. You just define the configuration here, and everything else the tool will manage. So if you see, I have if you see the URL, I have mentioned the URL for category listing page for women there. So what happens? So, you run the first command saying backstop reference. What this command is going to do is it's going to capture a set of baseline shots for you, right? Once it's captured, it's going to store it in the bitmaps reference directory. So you see that we have a screenshot for each, which is desktop, tablet, and phone. So we have a screenshot captured for each of the viewport that we have defined in our file. What you do is, whenever there is a change or whenever there is a new feature in and you want to run the test, you just simply run the command backstop test. And what it's going to do is, as explained previously, it's going to capture with the baseline shots that we have created before. And it's going to give you a nice HTML report, whether the test has passed or whether it has failed or whether it's a combination of both. You have few passed and few failed tests over there. Here, if you see, on the left, you see a reference section, and on the right, you see a test column. So the reference column is actually the baseline shot that we created using backstop reference, and the test column snapshot was captured during runtime, and it has compared both, and it has generated, since there was no diff, it hasn't generated any, and it has passed. So it generates for all the viewports that we have defined, which is desktop, phone, and tablet. But I wish life was that easy, right? We did not face any challenge in that basic test, but that doesn't happen in real life. There are challenges associated with this type of automated testing as well. The first one is anti-aliasing, and the second one is dynamic content. Anti-aliasing is, if I just want to explain it to you quickly, it's really, hardware differs from machine to machine, right? Like, for example, I might have a MacBook, someone else on my machine might be using an Ubuntu, someone else might be using a Windows machine, right? So if I capture baseline shots from a Mac, they are certainly going to fail on Ubuntu for sure, because of the pixel differences that the tool is actually going to report. So we'll see how we can handle that. The second is dynamic content, right? We work with so many web applications where the content is dynamic, and there are so many ads that are displayed. We have this slideshow, and basically we have a lot of dynamic content on many web applications. So let's see how we can handle these two challenges. So I'm going to actually showcase how the dynamic content challenge actually appears on a web application. If you see this particular snapshot, it's a slideshow, right, which is going to keep changing. So what I did was I had captured baseline shot of this snapshot of this home page, and then I ran a test. And then when I ran a test, what it did was it actually reported differences, because when I captured the baseline shot, probably the slideshow was on the first image, and when the test ran, the slideshow was on a different image. If you can see the reference and test column section, it clearly shows that the reference had the new arrivals slideshow, whereas test had the live demo slideshow. So what happened was the test failed. But there was no reason for this test to fail actually, right? Because this is not really a visual bug. It's more of a problem of having dynamic content on your website. So how do we handle such cases? Because it's going to be really irritating if you start seeing such failures, which are not really failures. So majority of the tool, they handle this in this fashion, which is having hide and remove strategy. So what does hide do really? So hide, what it's going to do is it's going to, we just need to specify the CSS selector for the components that we want to hide. And what it does is it's going to fill up that element space, right? So that the layout is not disturbed. And what would be good candidates for which you want to implement the hide strategy? It would be ad blocks. It would be images that we change, that we just saw, for example, which was a slideshow. Remove is another strategy which would completely remove the CSS element before capturing the screenshot. What would be, and you should be careful while implementing the remove strategy. If we had implemented remove strategy for the slideshow, what it would have done is it would have actually hampered the layout, which we don't want, right? So the good candidates for remove would be sticky headers, footers, popover, help chats, right? So let's see how it is actually implemented. So this is again the home page, right, that we just saw, which had a slideshow. If you see line number 29, it has a parameter called hide selectors, right? So it takes in an array. So you can specify multiple CSS selectors here, multiple elements that you actually want to hide. Similarly, on line number 32, it has remove selectors. What I've done is I've specified the CSS selector for the slideshow, which says homepage carousel slide. And it's going to capture a baseline shot with this now. Now let's see. Okay, so now if you see, I had run the test again and it captured the baseline shot. If you see in the reference column, now that space is filled up with black. Now it's not going to affect our test anymore. It hasn't affected the page layout as well. And that's the reason our test has now passed. If you see, 3 passed, which means it hasn't affected any of the viewports. Okay, there are several ways to handle anti-aliasing. One is that your entire team uses Docker because the environment remains steady there. But there are disadvantages to it. If you're using a Linux box, obviously, you are not going to have browsers like IE11. You're not going to have probably even Safari. So the next solution would be run your visual tests on cloud, like BrowserStack, Sauce Labs, because first is we wouldn't have the restriction of the browsers or devices. Second is since the baseline shot, they get generated on the same environment, we are not going to run into false positives. The third option is select a tool which is going to handle it implicitly. We'll look at such a tool. So so talking about the cloud option, this is how you can configure WebDriver IO with BrowserStack. You just need to mention environment variable, and you will be, so this integration comes out of the box and you'll be able to run your tests on BrowserStack. So this is just a small example after I had run the test on BrowserStack. You have various options from Selenium, from BrowserStack, from WebDriver IO, wherein you can see I have specified the build name, I have specified the test name, which is, so the build name is DrupalCon Global BrowserStack Demo, and I also have a test name here, which corresponds on BrowserStack, which is Contact Us page. So at Accelerant, how we really integrated this. So at every pull request, what we did was our build ran and we used a containerized database because we had advantages of keeping the data constant there, which means the tests ran really fast and we didn't really had to, and the data seeding part was taken care of by the containerized database. As part of the pipeline, we ran multiple tests to check our code quality for Drupal, for front end, then we had acceptance tests, then we had visual tests, and then it was deployed subsequently. So this is the actual implementation. These are the images from the actual implementation. We migrated our Accelerant website to Drupal, and we implemented visual tests as part of this project as well. So if you see how the actual implementation works here, is this is a fresh pull request, right, wherein there were no baseline shots. And by the way, just to clarify, we have integrated it using Cypress and Percy. So this is Percy's dashboard. So you see that on the left, there is no snapshot, right? Because since this was a first pull request, So a new snapshot is generated on the right. So this what happens on the first ever snapshot generation or first pull request. Whenever you are running it again, and if there aren't any visual changes detected, then it's going to say no visual changes, right? And all this can be integrated with Slack as well. And subsequent messages would be posted on Slack. We'll see an example for that as well. This is how our pipeline looked like. We had Drupal code quality checks, we had front-end code quality checks, and then finally we had a combination of acceptance tests and Percy visual tests. This is how it looked like in GitLab, and you can see that few tests have been few jobs have been failing, few have passed, but essentially these were the 3 checks that we did. So this is how it benefited us. So if you see on the left, that's the baseline shot, and to the right, that was the error that got generated. So if you see something in orange color or red color, right, whatever, so that difference was generated by the tool, that was generated by Percy, which and it says, and that is when the bill doesn't pass. It pops up a Slack message saying that changes are requested. What was the issue really? If you observe, there was this padding issue just above the footer. And that's the reason, the test screamed that it's failing. This is an example of the Slack integration, whether your tests pass, or if there are any changes needed, or if there are any approvals needed for changes, then all of that pops up on your Slack, and your team can go ahead and take care of it. If you want to understand how Percy works in CI, then this is the quick logic that they have explained. You can take a look at it later. But Percy works great with CI. I would recommend it for any CI project that you are looking for. It does work locally as well, but then it's a great tool, if you are looking to integrate something in your CI pipeline. What were the key results that we achieved? Since our database was containerized, right? I mentioned before, the data was consistent. We didn't really had to bother about the dynamic content. There are several ways to achieve or handle dynamic content issues, but then this was a very clever approach, because our automation scripts actually did the work of asserting and validating the functionality and the visual interface, than spending too much time in creating data, right? That is something I really recommend everyone. Keep your automation scripts and your test automation data separate. Also, the tool set that we chose here, the integration was seamless. It's like they integrated very well together. It was like out of the box, and it is really important. When you are looking for the tool set, it's important that you look for integration which is straightforward. Yes, our visual tests were validated as a replica of the wireframe, because since our database had all the data exactly as similar to the wireframe, so that was one advantage that we achieved. People often miss out on validating the user interface close to the wireframe, and in my personal experience, I have seen that people miss out on issues when you don't pick up that practice. And another great advantage, I would say, is that when you have your visual tests, the number of assertions for acceptance test exponentially reduces, right? I would give an example as well. So if you see this particular test, which is written in WebDriver IO, you would see that this is a simple test for checking the contact us form, right? I have just filled in a contact us form on Commerce Acromedia, and I'm submitting it and I'm validating it. There isn't a single functional assertion written in this test. All it does is on line number 19, it validates it visually, and that's it. And we are done with both functional and visual assertion by just one line of code. There are some good practices to follow. Like any other development project, like any other test automation project, you need to follow good practices. Identify the level of visual coverage that you need, right? If it's a huge website, everything needs to be planned really. Just don't go on capturing screenshots on every element, component, every page. See what is important, see what breaks. Organize your test suites, because if you're going to use a commercial tool, they do charge you for screenshots. So if you're going to organize it well enough, you're going to cleverly and smartly use your plan. I'll show a quick snapshot of how I have organized a sample test. Speed up your test execution by running them in parallel. If you're using Selenium, if you're using their grid, this solution would be helpful. And of course, identify the frequency to run your visual tests, right? Do you want to run it on every commit? Do you want to run it like once a day? Or do you want to run it after every deployment? Choose a strategy that will work for you and your team, right? So if you see the good practices that I had mentioned earlier, if you see in the Project Explorer section, I have divided the test as per browsers. Why have I done that? Because there are a few tests which are important. So for example, those would go in the specs section. If you observe a history, if you have observed a pattern that, say, okay, a particular page or few components break on Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari, what you could do is, instead of running those particular components or pages on all the browsers, what you can do is you can simply segregate them into those specific browsers and have them run only on those browsers. That's just to, again, works cleverly and smartly with your plan. On the right, if you see, this is how you can, if you're running it on cloud, you can mention the exact OS, the version, the browser. You can specify the build and project. That's how, it got captured in BrowserStack, the snapshot that we saw earlier. And similarly, you can mention mobile devices here as well if you're going to run them on cloud. Another good practice to follow is create test suites for your visual tests as well. So if you see, I have created sample 2 test suites. One is blog, which is going to handle all blog related visual tests. Another is I've created just a smoke test suite. What you could do is, if you create such a test suite, on every pull request, what you can do is, to save time, you can ensure that you just run the smoke tests, right? There are many command line options available with all the tools, almost all the tools, be it WebDriver IO, be it Cypress, right? Be it Percy. What you can do is you can use those command line options, and you can configure your pipeline to run only the smoke tests with every pull request. Again, it comes down to choose what works for you. It might not, so I wouldn't even say choose what works what for your organization. Choose what works for your team, in fact, because every team might have a different set of requirements. I'm just going to quickly brush through Apply tools because we just have 5 more minutes, and I just want to say that if I'm not I'll be available to take your questions after this session as well on chat on Drupal Slack, and you can also reach out to me on Twitter. You can email me your queries. I'll be available to take your questions. And after the session, I'll be posting GitHub repositories for Backstop.js, for WebDriver IO, and for also Apply tools. So these projects, you can just clone them and you can get started. And I'll be also posting videos, because I created a lot of videos for this demonstration, and I'll also be sharing the drive for videos that I've created for better understanding. Okay, this is some quick information about Apply tools. I think you can visit their website and also understand more about it. This is a commercial tool, but the reason I'm mentioning about this tool is because this tool has done a lot, even though it's a commercial tool, but it's achieved a lot when it comes to automated visual tests. We'll quickly look at some features. There are various match levels in Apply tools, right? So they have this AI embedded dashboard, wherein after the tests, after the snapshots are captured, you can actually validate the snapshot against each match level, right? If you have a web application which has consistent layout, but the content is completely dynamic. What I can closely relate to is the digital newspapers, like, right? So the news keeps on changing, say probably every day, but the layout is consistent. So in that case, their match level layout. So they have different match levels, and you can just quickly read here what these match levels are. This is the dashboard that I'm talking about. This is the screenshot from one of their recent hackathons that I participated in. And this hackathon was about the ultra fast grid that Applitools has. The advantage of ultra fast grid is that it supports almost all the browsers and all the devices out of the box. So if you see, the same screenshot has been captured on several browsers and devices, and what you have to do is nothing. You just have to configure it in your code, and they do all the job for you. So these are the baseline shots that were captured. And what I did was, so the hackathon had a second URL against which we had to run these visual tests. Obviously, it was flaky so that the tests fail. And this is how it highlights the differences in their dashboard. And so it's an extremely collaborative tool. What I've done here is I have marked this particular snapshot, this bug, and I have failed it. And what you can do is you can quickly comment here, what's the problem with this visual test? And an email would be shot to the entire group belonging to this project. So it's extremely good when it comes to collaboration. Talking about handling dynamic content, you see that they have multiple ways here, which is ignore region, floating region, strict region. You can go on their website and understand when to use what. So for example, if there is dynamic content, what you can do is you can just ignore that, mark that region as ignore region, and it wouldn't be considered in your subsequent tests. We spoke of match levels before. Apart from that, so what you could do is you can just run your baseline shots here, or the test shots here against different match levels, and it would update the test result accordingly. Apart from that, it provides out-of-the-box features for managing your baseline shots, updating your baseline shots, which can be a big task. Quickly talking about when do you use which tool. So, if this is how your project is, if it has a lot of static content, any of these tools would suffice really. Even that doesn't mean that you cannot use the tools that are listed in dynamic content. You can, it's just that, static content, use any tool. Dynamic shifting content, use these tools. Okay, now this is an important slide because, this session, it might have painted a rosy picture to you, but that's not how it is. As I mentioned, I started my journey 5 years ago, and all of this could be achieved only after a lot of trial, right? So the facts are that there are efforts needed to maintain your baseline images, right? If there are tools like Applitools, then they do the job for you, but otherwise it's a task for the team. If your site is huge, you will feel that pinch. Respect the test pyramid. Just because there is automated visual tests, don't ignore the test pyramid. You need to have tests at all level of the pyramid, and your visual tests, ideally should be a very small number of tests. Ensure full page validation. Do not capture screenshots for elements unless you are using a component library, say probably like Storybook. Then it makes sense to capture screenshots for components, individual components, and then also how they work together when they are integrated. Yeah, and the last point, do not expect overnight success. I'll just repeat that. Do not expect that. These are few references which will help you, which I have used in my presentation as well. Thank you so much for being here. This is the link for session feedback. Your feedback is extremely important to me. What was good? What could have been done better? Your feedback is important. So please take out some time to share your feedback. And I am open actually to questions. So let me just. If you have questions, please invite yourself and I'll be happy to answer them. I'll just repeat. I will be sharing the GitHub repository links. I will be sharing the videos that I had created for this session. I'll be tweeting about it, and I'll also post a LinkedIn post. So, in case you want to get in touch with me, know about the updates. I'm just checking. Thank you, Ryan.
So Shweta, there's a question. Can you see that?
One sec. Where is the question?
Okay, I can read that. Will the .gitlab CI YML files be available in the repo?
Yes, I'll provide that with you. Where will you be posting the resources? So I'll be tweeting about it, and I'll share a Google Drive link for the videos that I had created, and the repositories you would find on my GitHub. Thank you, Kyle, for your kind words. Malavya, I will share the link. So Tanisha, can you share the link for feedback once more? I think it was at the top of the chat.
Yes, let me do that.
I am available on Drupal Slack for questions. You can DM me. Please feel free to DM me. I am available for like a long time now because I'll be attending DrupalCon. I'm so excited about all the sessions.
Okay, there's one more question. Where would you suggest starting with visual testing for someone who has not done yet?
That's a good question. So that what I would say is start using it locally. Use a tool like Backstop.js, right, which is very quick to use because, as I mentioned, it's a config-based tool. Really, you don't really have to write any code. Tanisha, is it okay if I share my screen and show them some actual stuff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, this is an advantage of virtual conference, right? Otherwise, I would have been kicked out of the room. I am sharing. Okay. I'll just share my entire, or no. Oh, wait, let me just share this. Can you let me know if you are able to see PHP Storm IDE? Yes, okay, that's great. So you can start with Backstop.js to begin with because the configuration, the installation is really quick and simple. And as you see, what you have to do is you have to mention the viewports here, right? I had a snapshot for this, and all you have to do is mention different scenarios here. So this is an array of scenarios. As of now, I have mentioned one scenario here, right? So I have created a scenario for Drupal Commerce homepage, and it's just going to, once you run Backstop reference, then it's so you can use this tool, and there is good information about this tool on their GitHub as well. If you want, I can share. I have shared it in my references slide. You can take a look there. And yeah, so this is WebDriver IO. If you see, again, this is config paste. So like, many things come out of the box. If you see, this is the basic configuration file that I have used. Then again, it comes, the integration with Browser Stack is also out of the box. You can specify your environment variables here and it would work out of the box for you. Just give me 1 second. I'll quickly open up Apply Tools. Oops. Looks like I need to sign in. Give me 1 sec. It wouldn't work in incognito. Let me open up in I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see the Apply Tools dashboard as well. Yes, let me just quickly share. Can you see the Apply Tools dashboard? Can someone just confirm once, please? Yes, great. Okay, fine. Okay, so if you see, I had created baseline shots using this URL, which is Apply Tools, yes, using this URL. So they had provided this URL to consider for the baseline shots. And similarly, they had considered this URL to run our tests against so that, the tests actually fail. So these two URLs are slightly different. There are visual bugs associated here. And what I did was I've captured screenshots on various devices actually. So if you see, there is a test for cross-device elements, then there is a test for product details test, and there are tests for filter results, right? These are all different tests, but they are captured on n number of devices like iPhone and various browsers. And if you see, the differences are reported here in pink, and they have the step editor, right? So what you can do is you can mark that particular difference and you can annotate it, and you can, when you mark this particular test as fail, the next time when you run the test, it's automatically going to fail it. And and you can post something here. It has integrations related to Jira. It does create defects as well. Apart from that, it has different regions. So how can I, and it has different match levels. So if I say that, instead of strict, if we say content, then probably, so this wouldn't fail actually, unless there is a content difference as well. And if we say layout, then this is not highlighted, only the person discount is highlighted, even though the shoe white was not the correct result. Still it's saying that, so that's how their match levels work. And you can update, you can toggle between the checkpoint and the baseline. And there's something called as root cause analysis also, I remember. Yes. So what this feature does is it quickly highlights the differences in the DOM, and it's useful for the front end developers to quickly understand where they can do the fixes, right? Yeah, that was one it. And then, you have branch baselines. You can have baselines for different environments. If you have a dev environment, if you have a QA environment, they have many features. It's a commercial tool. They have a free plan as well. But I think it supports only 100 screenshots per month, not beyond that. But the AI dashboard is completely available with the free plan as well. I think there are some restrictions, but not many. You can still give it a try. You can sign up free with them and you can start using it. Apart from that, if you have an open source project, by the way, so you can reach out to them and they would support you for free. So if you are working on open source, feel free to reach out to Applitools. Yeah, so there are several ways. I would say start small, start locally. Yeah. Move to CI only, I would say move to CI later, once you have understood, how the concept really works. Any other question? Does Applitool? Yes, they do capture the screenshots for you. So they capture the screenshots for you, and they store the screenshots for you. You don't have to do anything in your project repository. So that's one big advantage. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Ivan. Akanksha has been, she had tried Applitools and she had tried a couple of their SDKs as well.
Okay, I have a very quick question that Malvia asked. How to proceed when the initial VD changes or client changes their mind about a component in a page but doesn't update the design?
How to proceed? Can you just elaborate more on the question, Malabi? I did not really understand. Are you saying that the component on a page changes but doesn't update the design? So I did not. Are you talking about a single component here? About a single component? So as I mentioned, if you're using a component library, right? So you would have screenshots for your component library as well, for your individual components. One thing that you could do is, if your individual component has changed, then you would have to update your baseline shots for that changed component, right? And eventually, similarly, you would have to update the baseline shot for the entire page wherever that component was integrated. So you would have to update your baseline shots whenever the design changes. Otherwise, what your tool is going to do is it's just going to refer to the incorrect baseline shot, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, I'm available to take more questions on Drupal Slack. So please feel free to DM, and thank you so much everyone for being a part of this session. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. And please don't forget to share your feedback with me. It's extremely valuable. Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful DrupalCon.